Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to start by saying thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better, Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing, Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life, Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple, Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level, and Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Rob Seymour. Rob is a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the athletic director at Fishers High School in Fishers, Indiana. Rob, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Jake. I really appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to have the time to speak with you.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a blast getting to know people from around the country and hearing how they do things and sharing their best practices. So let's go and jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and how this love of sports led to a career in athletics.
Yeah, thank you. So I grew up, it's interesting, I grew up in a small town, had like 186 people in my graduating class. And our community, which was just north of Indianapolis, that has blown up. And now I actually teach at one of the schools that my high school split. And I'm in a building here at Fishers High School that has 3,700 kids. Our other school has about 3,600. So again, back to that day when I graduated, I think we had 3,300 kids in the entire K through 12. And now we got two schools that sit above that. So grew up obviously and I work in the community I grew up in, which is phenomenal. Growing up, athletics were important to me. I tried to compete in everything I could. Once I got to high school, I narrowed that down to wrestling only. Came back, I went away for college for a year, came back and coached at my high school and got it and basically started that when I was pretty young, obviously a sophomore in college. And that led to one day deciding I was in pretty good shape. So I ended up running a local half marathon here. And then that launched my running interest. And that led me down the path of basically I went to IUPUI, which is a local, the extension school of Indiana University, went into sport, the physical education major. And I knew I wanted to get into teaching. Growing up, I had, a great experience in high school. I loved it. I was always one of the first kids in school. I loved being around my friends, loved being around the teachers. And so I wanted to get back into that. And I thought coaching was going to be it. But once I got my first teaching job, I realized that was much more rewarding than I would have ever anticipated. So I taught 9 years of elementary PE. I was kind of ready to move on and get back to a high school level. So then when in 2003, it was decided that, again, in my community, that our two high schools one high school was going to split. And but it was going to be 3 years as a freshman campus. So it was a perfect time for me because there was no pressure to hire coaches because it was, again, just one high school. So I got in just being a physical education teacher. I did come back to coaching wrestling again, back at my alma mater, and got into coaching cross country and track. And then in 2006, when we split schools, I was the head boys and girls cross country coach. And then I was also the head girls track coach. And in 2007, the second fall, we were the boys state champion in cross country. And then in February of 2008, I got out of teaching and coaching altogether and took a role as a dean of students here at Fishers High School. And I was a dean of students for 6 years. At the front end of that, I had finished all of my sports administration minus a last 3-hour project through Ball State University. And I loved it. I thought, I really would like to be an athletic director someday, but that didn't work out right away. And I ended up, like I said, being the dean of students, which to me, I loved. It was a great job. Obviously, your target audience, sometimes selected by misbehavior, but I loved working with those kids. I thought it was a great blend between being an administrator and being a coach. And so I really enjoyed that. My principal kind of views the way he views administration as you come in. That dean of students job is a nice entry level. You get the skill sets developed there. The next one he looks at is an athletic director. So in my 6th year, we had an assistant principal leave, and I got to take on an assistant principal's job for about 3 months, and then an AD. We were a 2 AD high school, so one of the athletic directors retired, and I was able to then transition over into the athletic director's job. So this is my 7th year now, I believe, of being an athletic director. And so, I think with all the skill sets that I've been given, it's been great. I love it.
I always love to hear those stories and how those various positions, teacher, coach, dean, AP, help you do your job. I still remember I was the AD and head football coach at a school in South Florida, and we'd gone through it like 5 deans in 4 years. And our faculty approached me about becoming the dean, and I think they thought my football coach mentality was what we needed. Long story short, I stepped away from being an AD. I was still the head football coach, but I was the dean for 2 years and really enjoyed it. As you said, you're working with a different population most of the time, but really, like I said, really enjoyed it. And then I was, after 2 years, I was approached by another school that was looking for an AD. And what I realized, I liked being a dean, but I loved being an athletic director. But again, that experience was really, really beneficial. Also, I got to ask you, Indiana, you a fan of, what the football team's doing so far?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, obviously, I think the first weekend, or maybe even the second weekend, Indiana football, all the football teams in Indiana were almost undefeated at one point, so it was exciting. Obviously, Indiana, IU football, IU basketball, very exciting, and a lot of big IU fans around here. So yeah, the season they're starting off with is great.
Oh no, I mean, just crazy, exciting games.
Yeah.
Rob, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and especially mentoring that next generation. So I'm curious, who are some of your mentors growing up? Maybe teachers or coaches that you had, or even people that you worked with or worked for? I like to say I still hear those voices in my head when I'm talking with a kid or a coach or sometimes even a parent. So whose voice do you still hear?
Yeah, listening to a lot of your podcasts and great responses from a lot of your different guests that you've had on here. I started thinking about that, and we are an inside out school, and so through that process, I really had to start reflecting on like what my purpose was, right? And I struggled with that, and then all of a sudden I realized that when I was growing up, I had people that cared for me and supported me, and I can't say that I've had a mentor. I mean, I worked at a local John Deere store, and I had people there that cared for me and supported me and mentored me. I still go back and meet with some of those guys and just, reminisce on old times. I obviously had great teachers, a few stick out. There's like one of our junior high ADs. He has grandkids in my school now, and so I run into him at soccer games. So there's some key people in my high school and junior high that I've tried it probably about 5 years ago. Anytime I ran into them, I've started taking pictures with them, just so I can remember the good times and what they did for me as a young person growing up. And so my grandpa, he was really influential with me and my work ethic. And we had a neighbor that also was really a really hard worker and taught me, the importance of the quality that you put into your jobs, and how you look at the different tasks that you take on, and whether they're worth doing. And if they are, then put your best effort into them. So there's so many different people. And then, growing into my professional career, well, even my community, skip back to being young. I grew up where I grew up in my community. There's we call it the three wise men, and a couple of them have passed away now, but they're at every one of our games, and they were there at my games when I was a young student passing through. So they've been influential. And then moving into professionally, athletic directors everywhere, I think, are great mentors. I mean, it's a great profession for sharing. Our local school, our sister school, there's a AD over there, Jim Self, and I've known him for a long time. And I remember walking around as a coach and just paying attention to what he was doing and how he handled officials, and and just how he presented himself and his school. And I really respected that, and have for years. And then my current principal now, as I kind of alluded to earlier, he really set up the path for me to gain the skill sets I need and to put me in a position that I feel that I can be the best for my school, for my community, and for my athletes.
Yeah, it's always just such a plus when you have that positive relationship, with your boss. It's not really that work for, it's work with relationship. And I've been blessed throughout most of my career to have those types of relationships. Rob, you've been on the job now for many years, and you've worked to get your CMAA. The NIAAA prides itself on being, part of that mentoring network. So share a little bit with our listeners, your journey from, first coming into the world of athletic administration to the process of taking that first LTI course, and then of course, reaching that level of CMAA.
Yeah. So when I started again, back in 2014, signed up for my first state conference, that we hold ours in March. And I went and I took like 3 classes right away, I think. And just really, again, I didn't know very many people in the profession. So signing up to take the LTI classes was a great way to consume information, and also just to get to know people, because you're spending some quality time with them. Prior to the conference, we do ours, we do our LTI courses prior to the conference. So it was a great way of getting to know people. And so I kind of started taking those, not at a real rapid pace at first, but anytime I had an opportunity, I would take them. So our state conference. The other athletic director that I have here, that's he's been AD for like 36 years. So he's been doing this a long time, and he goes to the national. He has a long-standing run of going to the national conference, and so I've always told myself that I would wait until he retired to go to the national conference. That way, we're not both out of the office. But last year, I decided to go ahead and go to that national conference. Now, in 2018, I did sit for my CAA and achieve that. I was kind of throwing up the idea of, do I go for my RAA? And then I realized, wait, I've got enough coursework. I've already been doing this for a couple of years. So why do that? I'll just go to the CAA. So I never held the RAA certification. So I got my CAA in 2018, continued again to take some classes, a little bit slower pace. And then when I went to the national conference this past December, I signed up to take, I think I took 2 out there, I believe. And I was sitting like 5 classes short of the CMAA, and obviously some idea of a project, right? And so when I got back from there, I was on fire, obviously. I mean, that conference is great, right? I signed up for everything out there. I know some people go and they want to see the area, and I was not me. I went to all the different sessions, and I went to one out there of how to be involved in the NIAAA and all that stuff. So when I came back, I took a couple classes online, and then I took a couple others that through COVID that obviously would not have normally been offered at that time, right?
Right.
So I just really buckled down and got all the coursework needed, and then the only hurdle in front of me was the project piece, and then I realized I've been working on a project for many years that really would be good, and that was I did a digital, we're a VNN school, and we created a digital coach's handbook. And it's kind of a living document, right? So anytime a coach comes and asks about something, and I'm like, oh, that's in the handbook. Here, let me show you. But if it's not in there, then it's like, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's put that in the handbook. So it's really a useful tool. I mean, even down to, uniform rotations, right? So, I mean, I tried to have it be as inclusive as possible. So that's kind of where I was. Now, again, it's interesting, sitting last March of, actually not this past March, but March of 2019, I remember having some conversations and asking some people in our double IAAA, I want to get involved. I want to get to know more people. And, that was a short time ago, right? And now I'm one of the assistant mentor coaches or, committee members for our district, for our association. And then, and so that's letting me get to know people all across the state. And then this past summer, I was also notified and contacted by the NIAAA that I'm going to serve on a committee for that as well. So it's been great. I'm looking forward to it. I really, it's just a great profession.
Well, you hit on three key things for me that I really want to highlight. And that's, number one, if you haven't been to the national conference, you need to go. And when you do come back, you will be on fire. I remember, my first conference in 2008, exact same experience. Came back and just started taking those courses like crazy. You also talked about your project. And for those of you looking ahead to your CMAA project, I'm a member of the NIAAA certification committee. So I work with ADs on their project. I evaluate their projects. And the message is, you don't need to invent some brand new pie in the sky, never been done before thing. You are already doing something with your kids, with your coaches on your campus. Maybe it's fundraising, maybe it's school spirit. It could be anything, but you're doing something that would make a great CMAA project. So, don't let that hold you back. In fact, reach out to, Rob or myself or anybody to, help you point you in that right direction. And then, lastly, Rob talked about getting involved, not just at the state level, but at the national level. There are opportunities out there. There are committees that are looking for new people. The term on a committee, unless you're a chair, is 3 years. You're on for 3 years, you work like crazy, and then you rotate off. So get involved at your local level, your state level, and if you feel called, at the national level as well. Rob, let's go ahead and jump right into COVID. We've certainly seen a variety of responses across the country. And to our listeners, we're recording this in the middle of November. So by the time it airs, things hopefully will have changed for the better. But Rob, right now, what's happening in Indiana? What's happening at your school with regard to return to school as well as return to play and athletics?
Yeah, so Indiana is, we've been blessed that our state association, our athletic association, has really tried to keep, everything moving forward, and they've put it to local control on what we want to decide. If we're going to, basically everything from, spectators to participation. So that's been, I think, a bonus for us. We started back in July 6th in the summer, and athletics was obviously the first thing to launch. Obviously, no one's in school at that time. And so we had about a 3 to 4 week head start on COVID protocols and getting our feet wet and getting some really good experience dealing with all the different protocols. Early on, our school corporation decided that they were going to start virtually. And so that the discussion came down, like, if we're going to be virtual, do you allow athletics to continue? And really all the protocols that we had established and the success that we had, they decided to let us go ahead and move forward. And that was a huge bonus for us. So we kept, moving forward with athletics. We started off with kids were virtual. While they were virtual, we had no spectators. And then we got to a point where we allowed, immediate family only. And then we transitioned into allowing students to be at contests and buy our tickets. We launched digital ticketing with Ticket Spigot, which was phenomenal. It really helped us control our capacities. And currently, right now, we are in a 50-50 hybrid with a virtual option. So our students can choose to be virtual or not. And right now, about a third of our student body is virtual. And then we have 50-50. So a red group comes in on Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, every other Wednesday. And then we have a blue group that comes in again every other Wednesday, and they're Thursday, Friday. So that's kind of where we're at now. We're in the transitioning between our fall sports. We have football is the only fall sport left going. We're in the regional round. And we launched boys basketball and boys swimming as the final sports for winter right now. So where we're at now athletically is trying to reel some things back in. We're going to kind of step back. Numbers are increasing dramatically in our area in the state of Indiana. So we're going back to immediate family only, controlling the capacities. Obviously, there's the concern of moving indoors. But we've been fortunate. Back in March, we started our athletic, our IIAAA, and me and a couple other ADs started a weekly Zoom meeting, right around the same time that Amanda Waters and Ira Childress started theirs. And so I was running our meeting on Mondays. I would catch Ira and Amanda's on Wednesdays. I think at times I saw you in there probably. And so. But we've been doing that. I think we've only missed like 1 or 2 weeks since March. So across the state, athletically, we've been sharing great ideas. In our district, we're a 2 high school district, so we share ideas that way. And then you got your conference, right? So you got a lot of people, a lot of great minds that are really allowing us to come up with best practices and to make the safest environment for our athletes and for our spectators.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about as you transition to winter sports, you're going to dial things back a little bit as far as fans. I was going to ask you, how were your fans, responding from a game management standpoint? Were they, social distancing? I remember our first home football game where we allowed the students to come back. They just did what high school kids do. They just clumped together, and we were very, hands-on, or pardon the pun, keeping them separated. So how have your fans been under these new rules?
Yeah, I think our fans have probably been a good representation for those across the country. There was a period where they were extremely happy to have athletics back, and they would have done anything. And then that honeymoon period kind of wore off, right? And then they wanted normalcy back. So we have, I feel like we've redone our plan almost every week to some degree. After hosting a few times, we changed our message, that we were asking for. We repeated our message more often during a game. We even kind of tweaked it a little bit on what was being said. And then, that basically got us through the fall season. And so we'll kind of carry on with some of those things. We had to write a proposal to our local health department for the number of spectators we could have. Our governor said you could have like 250, at an event. And so we wrote a proposal to ask for 250 for every entrance. So we were able to split our home bleachers to a north entrance, a south entrance. We had to have separate restrooms, separate concessions, and then we had the visitor side. So that allowed us to go to like 750 people. And so what we really did is we changed our message to our parents and said, hey, with permissions that we have been granted by our local health department, we're ensuring that we're going to wear masks. We're ensuring that we're going to have social distancing. So, we put that out there, and I think the majority of them do a pretty good job. And I think that as the concerns grow, they've started getting back to it. And as we go inside, going to limited numbers, we'll obviously be able to monitor it a little bit more. And so we're hopeful. We are cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, the rules, whether it's local, state, federal, they're changing sometimes daily. But again, the message to the fans is, hey, we want to keep doing this, help us, keep doing it, do your part. Rob, another question we've been asking our EDs has to do with this idea of, social awareness, social justice, if you will. And my question has been this, what are some things that we can do as athletic administrators? What are some things that we can do a better job of with our populations as far as, being, socially aware and socially just?
Yeah. Jake, I think this is a very challenging time, obviously. I wish the timing would have been different for some of the things that did happen across our country with the social injustice, because a lot of us that are in leadership positions athletically, we were just swamped with COVID. And, every conversation that you seem to have was, it hogged your attention, right? And so prior to COVID, our school district, we had some good traction on some diversity training, and we, as a district level, right? Like we had almost all of our administrators went through some training. We were really heading in the right direction. And then COVID hits, and we aren't, and then you're taking it takes kind of a back seat. And then the social injustice in our country kind of really came to the forefront. And I really, to be honest with you, this is one of the weaknesses I think we have, that I personally have. If I don't have a really clear plan on something, then I kind of like drag my feet through self-reflection. I've kind of gathered that. And so, like with the Inside Out initiative and the transformative coaching, like that was real easy, right? The plan was given to us, and it was real easy to launch. With what we do athletically for social injustice isn't as clear. And so that's where I've tried to here recently started consuming some materials, because everybody's kind of getting through COVID, everybody kind of knows what to expect. And now we can maybe start getting back to our attention on some of those things. I think the transformative coaching and the Inside Out initiative, what it did is gave us a common language, right? It allowed coaches, athletic directors, athletes, parents, all of us started, to develop a common language of what education-based athletics mean. And I think that's one of the things that when we start talking about social injustices, we need to have a common language or a common understanding. Like what are some good examples of the injustices that are occurring in education-based athletics? And how can we get past that? Because everybody's got a different lens, and they may not see things in the same way. And we've got to put some wording to it and some common understanding to it. I read a book here recently, the Book of Joy, and it was a conversation between the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu, and it was a 7 or 8 day conversation that they had just about the concept of joy. And I really started thinking, this may be one of a great way to get to the common language in social injustice, is just treating everybody in a humane way. That's how you get joy. You get joy personally by giving it to others. And so I thought, and one of the points they make in the book is that religion, a specific religion, is not going to get us where we want to go. It's going to be everybody working together. And that concept, I think, is going to be the same thing that's going to get us through the social injustices that we're facing as a country or facing locally, is getting everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction with the same understanding.
Great message, guy. I really appreciate you sharing that resource too. Well, Rob, it's been great getting to know you these last couple months through NIAAA's website, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the new athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're a veteran athletic director, but right now I'm going to task you with sending out a brand new AD on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Rob Seymour's athletic director toolbox?
Jake, I've always grown up telling people, give people more than they expect. So I'm going to give you 3, but in a way I'm giving you 9. So I came up with PQR, pretty quick return. Okay. So I think if the 3 things for the letter P, I'd like everybody to be able to have perspective on what they're doing, have patience with their tasks, and professionalism, meaning get out there and get into your state association, your national, network, right? Network with other ADs. So again, perspective, patience, and professionalism that's the first P. The Q, ask questions. Don't hesitate to call another AD, ask a question of your own procedures. Do they need to be changed? Should they be modified? And then be quick thinking. As an AD, many times we've got to think quickly, and we've got to think of the safety of a lot, right? And so the quick thinking is part of the Q there. And then the last Q item I have is quality time. Respect that quality time with your family. Make time for it, and make that important, because we give up a lot of our family time. So that's the last on the Q. And then the R, there's three of them, obviously. Relationships are extremely important. Build relationships with your coaches, build relationships with other ADs, with your students as best you can, and with your parents. And then second R, responsibility. I feel like I want to help my coaches get to, if they ask me something, I don't want to just say no. I want to say no, but let's get your idea where it works. And then if it doesn't work, I take the responsibility for it. Okay. So, try to help them get where they want to be and make their ideas work. Don't make their ideas mine, but be responsible in the end for what's happening. And then the last one is, and I think this is probably one of the most important things, is reflection. So after if you've properly planned, things are going to go well, things are not going to go well, but you've got to reflect on it, and you've got to be able to not take things personal, kind of be indifferent sometimes, and be like, okay, you know what, through this reflection, I may not like what a parent says when they call and complain about something, but there's probably a little bit of truth to what they're saying, and how can I reflect and make things better, not only for that parent, but for every other parent and every other kid in our program. And that's it. So the PQR, pretty quick return.
PQR. I'm not only, like any good AD, I'm not only going to steal that, I'm also going to steal that, giving them more than what they expect. Well done. Well done, my friend. Rob, if one of our listeners wants to follow up with you and, steal some more things like I did, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably through email, or just shoot me a text, either way. My email is rseymour@hse.k12.in.us. Cell phone 317-407-9372. So I love talking athletic administration, and then be more than happy to help anybody out. Or the pandemic, everybody says it's been rough, right? It actually has been great for networking. I got friends in Iowa, the beyond the bench ADs, you got conversations with you. And so, that's one thing that's given us time to connect, and so I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with anybody.
Okay. I know people can rewind this podcast, but go and give that email one more time.
Yep. It is first initial, last name. So that's rseymour@hse.k12.in.us.
Okay. Rob Seymour, thank you so much for being a guest. All the best as the seasons continue to unfold. And to our listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Remember, this Zoom recording will be uploaded to the Educational Athletic Director YouTube channel in a few weeks. Thanks again for listening. Come back next time. And